Hello, and welcome to another special video for EYE4AI, the channel that promises to bring you the latest news, the greatest insights, and the best guests in artificial intelligence. Firstly, thank you to those who've liked or commented on the last video of the New York Times filing against Microsoft and OpenAI. And a huge thank you in particular to all the new subscribers to the channel. We're heading towards 10,000 now, and it means a huge amount to us. I said this was a very special video, and it is. You've seen me review all manner of AI research papers on the channel, and this is another one. But it's not like any others that are out there. No, this video is about what the real AI experts predict will happen and how quickly in the field of artificial intelligence, as well as how that will transform society, economies, and the world we live in. This is the views of thousands of AI experts and authors, all collated into one place. Are we heading for AGI in 2024 and superintelligence within the decade? Or will we have to wait just a little bit longer? And with that tantalizing question, I'm super pleased to welcome to EYE4AI, joining me from Berkeley, California, the co-founder of AI Impacts and the co-author of industry-leading research papers looking at the expectations and beliefs of AI experts and researchers. Katja, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. You're watching EYE4AI, bringing artificial intelligence to all of humanity. Little bit of introduction for you, Katja. Katja is, of course, the co-founder of AI Impacts, the California-based AI research projects. She self-describes as trying to incrementally answer decision-relevant questions about the future of AI, such as the understanding of the impacts of human-level artificial intelligence. As well as leading AI Impacts, she blogs primarily at World Spirit Sock Puppet. She has a BSc majoring in human ecology and science communication and has studied game theory more than most, she says, and likes to think about lots of things. In fact, she also likes to write lots of things that are read voraciously, as she has co-authored many reports that have been extensively read, including one, I think, in 2017 that was the 16th most read article in the world. She says she's very much in favour of making the world much better, and in particular, which is maybe why she's got into research around AI and AI safety. She grew up in an abandoned town in Tasmania with, as she describes it, an abundance of donkeys and trees and a dearth of schooling and parental attention. And so eventually she moved to California. She likes the world and so both aspires to live in its reality and to save it as much as she can. And she reckons right now that AI forecasting is probably as good a place as any to do that. So, Katja, welcome again. And first of all, please tell us a little bit more about those donkeys and the trees.
As there were a lot of trees because all the houses had been taken away from the town, or nearly all of them, so the trees were kind of growing back gradually. And there were a lot of donkeys because apparently if you want a donkey, you can just get one for free because they're not very desired. I'm not sure what sort of economic circumstance led to the excess of donkeys at that time. But yeah, I asked my parents for donkeys and I guess they got me 3.
Oh, awesome. Excellent.
I had a lot of
and now you're in. Yeah, no, sure. And so, what made you move over to California eventually?
Well, originally I visited California, which was on a trip around the world, which I had been given for I think my 21st birthday.
Right.
If planes leaving from Australia, need to stop somewhere on the west coast of America, I think. Yeah. And so I chose a place where I'd heard the words before, San Francisco, and arranged to meet a stranger there via, I think, approximately via the comments of the blog Overcoming Bias. And then we got on very well upon meeting, and she invited me back to stay with her. So since I finished my trip, I started toward moving to America and have been here most of the time since.
Awesome. And how long ago did you start AI Impacts?
This was like mid 2014, and it sort of became my job at the start of 2015. Yeah. So
and what was
a while ago.
Yeah, that is a while. Before it became particularly trendy, right? What was the impetus for setting up AI Impacts?
I think it sort of grew out of a different project to make arguments for different for doing different things being particularly good very clear. Like I guess we've
Yeah.
also had a kind of structured argument for why maybe you should do like animal welfare activism or something,
Mm.
and different ones about AI. Yeah, this was like with my boyfriend at the time, who we were both interested in, yes, effective altruism, figuring out what the best thing to do is and doing it.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the AI thing seemed particularly good to figure out, either because it was an extremely big deal, or sort of maybe less likely to destroy the world or something than the people around me mostly thought, in which case it seemed probably good to figure that out early so we could all do something else valuable.
Right. Excellent. And you've been doing that for the last 7, 8 years then?
Yep.
Very good. And I think I mentioned this to you when we spoke briefly before
Yeah.
the show, but I noticed on your X profile that you have some very famous followers. You have Gary Marcus, who is, for anybody who's in the AI business or hangs out in New York, probably knows of a certain Gary Marcus, who I think was, well, quite famously at the Senate hearing around AI last year. But then also some guy called Sam Altman apparently follows you, which is quite impressive. How did you manage that?
I don't really know. Yeah, I think um, I guess we all think about AI. It's, not a huge
No,
world. Yeah.
no, exactly. And I guess well, you and Sam are probably in a similar geography as well, right? Oh, in fact, didn't you say
That's
you
true.
bumped into him at
I,
a
I do
party
bump into him
recently?
occasionally. Yep.
Yeah, excellent, very good. Um, So just to move on to the subject that we're going to talk about, which is obviously looking at your
Mm.
report paper, thousands of AI authors,
Yeah.
on the future of AI, which I think is a fascinating subject. So, I mean, humanity has, of course, been fascinated with the idea of artificial intelligence for a very long time, whether that's from 8th century BC's Homer's Iliad to Hephaestus's Handmaidens of Gold, to something more recent like Philip K. Dick and his Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and obviously many other literary references that we could go to. Why do you think that fascination has existed for so long, and what's led to this point?
Hmm. I think the fascination has probably existed because you know, humans are an important part of the world. Like for a long time, humans have been
Hmm.
like the main thing, causing interesting things to happen around us. So it's maybe clear without any kind of technical understanding of AI that if you had something else like a human, especially that was like a human but better in ways,
Yeah.
that would shake things up. Um, yeah, so I think that's a sort of easy thing to imagine, even if you don't know the
Yeah.
details yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of AI impacts, what's its mission today? I know you've been at it now 7 or 8 years, but what's its mission? Would you say?
uh, to answer decision relevant questions about the future of AI, uh, where they're relevant to the decisions of, I guess, a pretty broad set of people, not ourselves necessarily. We're sort of just trying to inform people so they make good choices.
And is that for governments or enterprises or societies,
Um,
or at what level do you
yeah,
think?
all of the above. Just
Right.
you know, including, I don't know,
Okay.
people who aren't doing AI type stuff, and
Yeah.
are interested in whether it's a problem and might want to get into it. Um, yeah, people who have to make decisions about it because they, work in government and are going to have to regulate it somehow, that sort of thing.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Cool. So we'll walk through the paper in a little bit, and I'll ask you some questions as to some of results that came out of that, which I think were pretty incredible, frankly. And I think in the way that they had moved from your report last year, I think some of the differences in the views of the AI experts and researchers is quite compelling. But I just wanted to touch on one of your other papers that I'd gone back and read from your various blogging sites, and that was the blog you wrote that I particularly love called "We Don't Trade with Ants." I just wondered if you could just explain the sort of the premise as to what that was all about, and I guess how it related in particular to a conversation about AI.
Yeah. So I guess maybe for the whole time I've kind of been in the AI field, people have been saying, if we had much smarter machines than humans, they would treat us like we treat ants. Which is to say, kind of ignore them, tread on them. So we'll kind of lose everything because we'll be treated like ants. And I guess I wanted to argue with that, because I think an important thing about ants is that humans don't know how to communicate with them. It's not actually that they're useless. I think if we could trade with them, they would do things that we wanted. It's really like a communication problem. And so I guess I went through various things that you might do with them. And I don't know that this changes the situation. Yeah, okay.
Well, actually, I'd just like to pause there for a minute, because I loved your list of potentially valuable things ants can do. So, assuming we could communicate with them and do some stuff with them, some of them were great. Chase away other insects. Surveillance and spying was one of my favorites. Defend areas from invaders. Sculpting things at a very small scale, which is amazing. Digging tunnels, being used in medication, participating in war, mending things at a small scale. So anyway, it was a lovely list of things that ants could do for us. But I guess your premise was the fact that if we could communicate with ants, then we could potentially get them to do all these useful things. But because we can't, that isn't a thing that happens. Whereas I think what you were saying is that with AI, and if AI became either generally intelligent or perhaps super intelligent, that would it bother to work with us as humans? And does that rely on the fact that they'd be able to communicate with us or not? And so, what was your kind of conclusion around that?
As I think in the long run that if AI is sufficiently capable and plentiful, that probably humans will not have any jobs left. There'll be no reason to cooperate with us on getting labor done. But I just don't think that it's analogous to the ants case. I think that if we were like ants, then I think AI would probably communicate with us and continue to collaborate, and so we shouldn't really be drawing much from that situation, I guess.
No, well, I guess on the basis that it would be able to communicate with us, at least on some sort of level, perhaps not at the the intellectual level that it would like to talk on, but I guess just the fact that at the moment our physical ability to do things in the physical world, at least at this point in time, is more advanced than artificial intelligence. When it becomes super intelligence, who knows? Perhaps they will be more adept at changing a plug or screwing something, or and if that's the case, then maybe we are toast. But okay.
Yeah, but I guess especially if robotics is hard, then for a while it might be that we're in a sort of similar situation to ants, where there are a bunch of physical things that we can do better, even if we're less smart.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look, thank you for that. And as I said, you've written some amazing blog posts in the various blog sites that you've got. So I'll drop the links in the description of the video, and I'm sure people can have a look there if they want to read some more. And I've read a few more than that, I must admit. So very interesting. Anyway, I think probably we should turn to the paper at hand, which is
Let's do it.
pretty new. It's fairly hot off the press. I mean, I think this was a pre-read or a pre-briefing originally in January. Is that right? Does that mean it's
Yes.
formally now come out, or?
No, it means we're submitting it to places now. So yeah, I was keen to get the preprint out quickly because I think getting
Yeah,
things into journals takes a bit of time, and this kind of thing is important to do soon. I think, like you want to hear
yeah,
these
no,
results shortly after they come out before things change again.
oh, yeah, exactly, and I'll come on to that when we get to some of the content, because I think even now you can see one or two of those things where you go, oh, actually maybe we're getting pretty close to
Yeah,
one or two of those tasks that you've got on your list already. So maybe just tell us a little bit about. Obviously, this was done by this. I guess this was done in conjunction between yourselves at AI Impacts and some other folk. Is that correct?
yeah, that's right.
So I see Germany here. I see University of Oxford in United Kingdom. How did you come to do this as a sort of a collective research paper?
Um, I guess I was setting out to do it, and then I um, mostly looked around people I know through like AI safety type stuff
Mm,
for people who wanted to help and seemed like they could help.
mm. Yeah, okay. Because I think actually one of the topics here, and as we move through it and get to kind of the summary, obviously AI safety is quite a sort of a key theme as to where is always heading, how quickly is it heading there, and therefore what do we need to do to make sure that we get there in a way that where we're all still in existence, frankly.
Yeah.
So this was you say it's the largest survey of its kind, and you say 2,778 researchers. I guess you sent it out to probably a much larger number than that to actually get that response,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yes.
Okay, and so how did you select where you sent it? Was it and the geography that you sent it? Was it AI researchers and experts all over the world? Were there any criteria that you used to select them?
Yeah, in particular, it was we took six particularly good venues for publishing AI research, and we found the lists of everyone who published in those venues the previous year, and then we tried to dig up their email addresses, many of them from the papers, but some of them didn't have them in the
Right.
papers, or
Yeah.
they just have it for one author and not the rest.
Yeah.
And so I think we found more than 90% of them. Yeah, and so specifically everyone at those six venues.
Right. Okay. That's very good. And if we go just into the kind of the introduction here, you've this isn't the first time you've done this report, right? You've created this research based upon at least a similar set of questions a couple of times before, at least. Could you just describe
Yeah,
that sort of journey?
yeah. So we did the first one in 2016, and I guess put a lot of effort then into
Mm,
developing the questions. And then in 2022 and 2023, we tried to use sort of identical questions as far as possible. I think there are a few places where we edited it slightly because the wording in 2016 suggested that something was state of the art that was not anymore. It was
right.
out of date. Um, yeah, there's sort of minor things like that. And we also added questions about human extinction, particularly in 2022, um,
Hmm.
and then in 2023 we added a few more questions.
Okay. Good. And you say here in the survey that you used a couple of the methods here, which won't be familiar to probably many of the readers. One is the Likert scale, and then also the idea of a fixed years and a fixed probabilities kind of
Ah, yes.
dual approach to the. Would you mind just describing those a little bit?
Yeah, so a Likert scale you probably have seen where
Yeah.
you have a list of options like there is this very unlikely, somewhat unlikely, medium likely, very likely, very likely, something like that.
Mhm.
So it's just multiple choices along one axis. And the fixed years and fixed probabilities framings, this is for questions where we want like a distribution over years in the future, like when is a thing
Mm.
going to happen? So it's going to look something like a small
Okay.
probability next year, bigger
And the
probability
first thing that
the year
you
after that,
oh,
etc., getting
yeah.
up to, near 100% very far out, perhaps, like if you're confident the thing will happen ever. Um, so there are a couple of different natural ways to ask about that. One of them is to
Mhm.
give the person some years out and ask them what probability they think should happen by those years. So, like in 10 years, what's the chance that this will have happened? In 50 years, what's the chance it will have happened? In 100
Mm.
years, and so that gives you some year probability pairs that you can then turn into a distribution, sort of interpolating between them. Or you can give them probabilities and ask them in what year they think that will happen. Like, when will there be a 10% chance of this? When will there be a 50% chance?
Right. And you
Um,
chose those two methods to give some variability, or because they're two well-known methods that give you different results, or what was the reason for having those two separate
um, I
approaches?
actually don't know how much this has been observed by other people. So it was
Right.
more just that we thought that we might get different answers. I think
Okay.
in various places in 2016 where we thought that it might make a difference how we asked the question, we asked in different ways, and
Yeah.
then we end up, in fact, getting different answers the different ways we asked, like across the years, and like across different particular tasks. Um,
Hmm.
I think there's a pretty consistent trend that if you ask in one of these ways, you get later answers than the other one. So
Yeah.
having observed that, then we want to sort of keep asking in both of the ways, because otherwise we're getting an answer that we know to be sort of biased in one of those directions. So at the moment, we ask in both ways and then combine them.
Okay. Thank you. So one of the first pieces that you move on to is you look at these 37, is it, or 30 or 37 or so different tasks and roles in terms of on this scale as to when they are likely to happen. And I guess before we look at that, maybe that chart in a little bit more detail, the two key phrases or terms that sort of crop up throughout the report are HLMI, which is high level machine intelligence, and full automation of labor. Could you just briefly describe what each of those mean, and from your perspective, what the difference is in respect to those two as well?
Yeah.
Which might not be easy, but
Yeah. So I guess this is a different case where we were trying to ask basically the same question in multiple ways. Um,
hmm,
and so, from my perspective, I think they're like fairly similar or like closely related definitions. Um, so, high level machine intelligence is roughly like when uh, when will any task be doable by AI, or
mhm,
any current human task be doable sort of at least as well as humans can do it, including as cheaply. Um, uh, Assuming that there's no huge disruption to scientific progress or something. So we're trying to like separate out what people
right,
believe about, whether the world will end for some other reason. uh, and the uh, but it's basically like when can AI do all the tasks? Um,
yeah,
Full automation of labor is when will all the human occupations be automatable?
right,
So to me, that seems like a somewhat narrower than all the tasks. Um, you could either think of an occupation as
yeah,
like a very big task or a collection of tasks. Um, So I think I would think that full automation of labor would come before high-level machine intelligence, because it's a subset of the tasks. But
Okay.
in fact, people give very much later dates for it. So I think other people
Yeah,
are
that's
thinking something different. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's interesting because actually, when I looked at it, I kind of almost did look at it the other way, in
Yeah.
that a job or a kind of a role is, to me, is almost maybe a more complex combination of a whole set of tasks, and therefore putting those tasks together in a certain way is kind of a bit greater than the sum of the parts, I guess. So maybe that's
Right.
how I might have interpreted it. But as you say, I'm sure people interpret it in different ways. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's probably some of like that kind of difference in interpretation. I think it's possible there's some sort of difference in like both questions ask about the thing being automatable, not like actually implemented in the
Mm.
world a lot. But my guess is that people think of the full automation of labor one, they sort of forget that more and think about it as actually labor having been automated. Um, and I think there was like some evidence from talking to people that um, they were thinking of full automation of labor as including robotics,
Right.
and HLMI is not, perhaps.
Oh, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you. So, i.e., to come with the robotics to allow you to actually execute all of those jobs in the physical world, if you like. Okay.
yeah. So we don't have that much idea what's going on with a huge gap here, but there are like various possible causes floating around.
Sure. And then, I mean, we can come back to some of the specific dates, but I'm just interested in some of the specific tasks that you had here, and the scales of these are obviously slightly different. So the bottom scale is
Mm,
just 2023, kind of where we are now, to 2043, which is not a huge time out. And actually,
yeah.
and if I get this right, these black dots, these represent, is this sort of the mean time, or the 50% confidence level at which these will be achieved? Was that right?
I think it's the yeah, like in like where the like if you average everyone's distributions together, what year has a
Mm,
50% chance of the thing having happened?
yeah. And you've ranked those obviously from the bottom, which is the ones that the responses came back as being the earliest to be achieved, to the last one. Actually, that's a role, the retail salesperson I was laughing at. But in terms of some of these other, the ones that are in black, obviously they're the tasks, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
like
right.
simple Python code, giving spec and examples. Um, I guess can you say that
That's
that's
the thing.
already being done, or on the verge of being done? What's the difference
Uh,
between what a GPT-4 is, or various other code LLMs is spitting out now, and that definition, for example?
it seems very plausible to me that that is already done. I guess
Mm.
uh, for various, it's surprisingly hard, I think, to answer whether one of these has been done, um,
Yeah.
especially because the question is actually like, uh, is it like, would it be doable by a lab within a year if they wanted to? So it's not actually,
Right.
is it currently done? It's like, would it be doable if you tried?
Yes.
Which is especially hard to answer. So
Yes.
for various of these, I think we would guess that they have been done, but we
Mm.
decided to just ask about all of the ones that we had in the past anyway, instead of us judging whether they were done or not. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. No.
hopefully, if one year like all of the AI researchers agree that they have been done, um, they will say that, and then we'll get a
Is
lot of
that?
answers.
Yeah. I was going to say. So when you get 100% on any of these, then you'll take it off the list, maybe.
Yeah, if we got like
And-
2023 is the answer. Um,
yeah. Exactly.
but yeah, I don't know
Okay.
how
But
well this
there's
works, because I mean, I think they might reasonably assume from getting the question that we think it hasn't been done, and be like, all right, well, I guess you
yeah.
wanted something more elaborate.
Yeah. 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 But this list goes up to, but even at the top level here, in terms of tasks, which is 5 km city race is a bipedal robot, which I guess requires some robotics in there. Winning the Putnam math competition, assembling Lego. You know, all of these tasks, which are lots of them are fairly non-trivial, um, are all here saying that there's a more than even chance that they'll all be completed within the next 10 years, which
Yeah.
is quite crazy to think of. In fact, there's another one here that
Yeah.
I looked at based upon just having watched the amazing Sora videos, which I'm sure you've seen some of those
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. Construct video from a new angle. I mean, construct video from a text prompt. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost more impressive than that in a way, isn't it? But I think that's really really interesting. And I guess the thing that the key here was, as it says at the bottom here in the figure 1, most milestones are predicted to have a better than even odds of happening within the next 10 years. Although obviously the lines indicate the range of dates that were given in those, right? So,
yeah.
But then when you come up to actually high level machine intelligence and the full automation of labor, the dates there. Something quite dramatic has happened to the dates there in the last year. And actually, maybe we should step down a little bit, because I think you go on to describe that in more detail in the paper here. So we talked about the 39 tasks. It was 39, not 37. There you go. And I guess the comparison with 2022, and this is where it's, I think, particularly meaningful. And rather than me read it, why don't you just sort of describe what you actually found, and what was particularly telling about those findings compared to 2022?
Yeah, so I guess for these two different questions that are roughly kind of like human level intelligence, the HLMI and full automation of labor questions, if we took all the answers and averaged them together, and then we get some date for 50%, and that date dropped by, I think it was 13 years for HLMI and something like 40 years for full automation of labor.
Wow.
That might not be exactly right, but it was basically like a decade and 4 decades, I think. And I think that's particularly striking, given that like between 2016 and 2022, the HLMI number moved by about a year.
Yeah, I think this was the difference between the two, right? This was the HLMI graph, which showed, I think, and I guess if you're looking at the 2022, which was the blue line, and the 2023, which is that red line, the advancement in that 50% level, which was saying, what was that, 2047, I think, was the date for that 50% confidence level, which came in significantly from the previous years.
You can see in the background that the individual estimates are like really all over the place. I think it's I think I'm less inclined to trust the particular years than like the movement of them. Like if everyone's all over the place, but they all got a bunch earlier on average, I think that's pretty striking.
There seem to be, I guess it's obvious from the fact that the red line is accelerate, or the average red line is accelerating beyond the average and the blue line, but those very fast accelerating lines up here, which are obviously all red from this year. So there's some people who've got very very bullish about HLMI in the last 12 months.
Yeah. Which I think matches many people's experience of the discussion.
Yeah, and maybe just going back to this one briefly. This was actually looking at the individual milestones the individual tasks, as well as the two higher level pieces. But a lot of these were all moving. So the first one, I assume that's New York Times, best-selling fiction. That's come into what, 2030 from 2045 or something, 2040, which is
nearly 2040. Yeah, down to 2030.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. And were there any that went the other way?
Toward the bottom there, you can see they
Right.
turn around. So I
That's
sort of wonder
interesting. I
for those
wonder
ones like
why.
top
Yeah.
StarCraft play, I wonder if it's like, well, I don't know, maybe it seems like it's already been done, maybe it has, and so
Hmm.
at that point, I can imagine more people are answering the question like, well, I guess it
Yeah.
hasn't been done, so
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah. Okay. And then as we step down a little bit further, so we talked about the full automation of labour, and I think you defined that. I think you defined that very clearly, and the fact that that was down from that was down 48 years,
Yeah, right.
50% chance of full automation labour by 2116, which was down 48 years from 2164 in the previous year's survey, which is
Yeah,
quite
sorry,
a
nearly 5
dramatic.
decades.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. And I think what was the date for the high level? I can't find it now. This week. Oh, there it is. There it was. It was by 2047, down 13 years from 2060.
Yeah, right.
That was the 50%. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
All right. But then the full automation of labour was down to, and then the full automation of labour was. Just bear with me. Here we go. Yeah, predicted a 50% chance by 2116. Yeah. Okay.
So still pretty far out.
Yes. Still pretty far out. So we're probably not going to be quite at what is it? The universal wage isn't coming in the next few years, at least, probably on that basis. If you believe in the idea of a universal wage, do you believe in the idea of a universal wage when
uh,
we replace all jobs with AI?
like a universal, like basic income type
Basic
thing.
income, yeah, sorry, yeah, exactly.
Oh, I think that probably sounds like a good idea. I haven't thought about it deeply, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it sounds good.
And then there's the next question was an interesting one as well, because I was trying to work out what this actually was really saying. It seemed to be saying that basically most researchers seem to think that the development of AI was a lot faster in the second half of their career than the first half of their career. Is that correct?
I think not necessarily a lot faster, but faster. Yeah. Um,
Right.
the reason we asked people this was in order to
Yeah.
try and yeah, uh, as like a third way of getting some kind of answer on when human level performance at things. So we asked people
Yeah.
about performance in their subfield and how fast that was moving toward human level performance. So
Yeah.
we're mostly just trying to check whether it was accelerating or not for whether it's possible to extrapolate the thing. So I
Yeah.
guess yeah.
Right, and I guess if the predominance was that everybody was more people were saying it was faster in the second half of their career, wherever they were in that career, I assume that means that the overall view is that it's accelerating rather than getting slower, right?
Yes. So then it makes it harder to do the extrapolation we're hoping to do because
Yeah.
the speed is changing. Yeah.
So I was interested in the question behind all the sort of the inputs in respect of the AI progress
Yeah.
question here. When you asked about the
Yeah.
sensitivity, and that you grouped those into sort of 5 different areas. So researcher effort, declining cost of computation, effort put into increasing the size and training of data sets, funding, and the progress in AI algorithms themselves. And I guess
Yeah.
I don't know what would you say the summary was from that piece of analysis and that questioning?
uh, I think my summary would be that um, so we're asking for each of these things like if
Hmm.
if there'd been less of this input over the last however many years, like
Yeah,
decade or something,
yeah,
how much less overall progress would we have seen? And I think people's answers are very spread across the board. Like for each of these inputs, there are some people saying like we would have almost no AI progress if we'd had half as much of
Mm.
that thing, and some people saying
Mm.
we'd have almost the same amount of AI progress with half as much of that thing. So I think it was interestingly across the board for each one,
Yeah.
and also like I think they were interestingly similar.
Hmm.
Where I might have expected that the that computing in particular would be seen as a particularly big deal, but I think
Right.
it's not vastly different from the others. They're kind of all seen as you know, middlingly important. It looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was interesting, and I was also interested in so
Yeah.
your choice of the criteria as well, because you didn't put anything in there about, I don't know, sort of the demand or the expectations of kind of, the commercial and the business world. Nothing
Interesting.
there in
Yeah.
terms of kind of the social aspects of, I mean, things like, just the fact that with ChatGPT and other things, the world is now much more open to the idea of artificial intelligence. I mean, I've been working in it for many years,
Yeah.
but literally, from conversations where I was, sometimes having to drag people into a conversation about machine learning, 5-10 years ago. Now I have boards and C-suites desperate to have a conversation about generative AI and how they take advantage of it. So I guess that
Yeah.
that sort of
Interesting.
whole business lens is, I think, an interesting one. Obviously, because I guess I'm
Yeah.
in that field.
Yeah. Right. I guess I think the things that we do have are somewhat like overlapping with each other.
Mm.
Like funding probably goes into these other things, for instance.
Yeah,
So I agree
yeah,
that it
true.
might have made sense to have things that are more like, social changes that might affect
Mm.
the inputs. I think for this one, like something to do with, the conversation about it changing. Remember that
Yeah.
we wrote these questions in like 2016, so
Yes, yes, of
this is a
course.
time when there had been very little of that. And I guess it
Yeah,
wasn't very salient as an input. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I guess it almost makes a lot of sense because you're trying to do, and I think you've done a really good job of, like, comparing back across years, and therefore you need to keep some level of consistency between the way you're going to do the analysis now, right, as you did the last year and the couple of years before. Otherwise, you can't really draw those conclusions in the same way if you change it too dramatically from year to year.
Yeah, I think I tried to change it not at all because I guess it seems like there are these questions we have where there are big framing effects from not very
Mm.
big differences in the question,
Yeah.
like the fixed years versus fixed probabilities thing.
Hmm.
I guess that has made me think it's more important to have the questions be identical if you want to confidently say anything about what has changed over time.
Yeah. And then you go on to another interesting question, which is kind of almost as a result of the faster advancement of AI. And once you get to a certain point, and I guess people call it, different things in different ways, but even sort of artificial general intelligence is also used as I guess a similar-ish term for that kind of level. When AI can start to improve itself without actually kind of requiring our help directly, what does that do? Does that kind of create an exponential um, advancement of AI that in the way that you describe here as an intelligence explosion? I think that's a similar kind of concept that you're talking about here. And I guess
Yeah.
the results here. I mean, again, do you want to just comment on the results from this question?
Um, yeah. So I think this question is asking just like how likely this sort of argument for an
Mm.
intelligence explosion is to be broadly right, if I remember. Um,
Mm.
and I think the argument um, in particular says that things have to get like an order of like that there'll be some sort of feedback here where AI is helpful for AI, and then in particular that
Mm.
it will get an or that technological progress becomes more than an order of magnitude faster within 5 years of high level machine intelligence being achieved. Um,
Mm.
I think it's important to say actually how much faster you're expecting things to be because um, it seems like technology is always helping with technology. Like presumably, computers are helpful for making computers, etc. So there's kind of like, in some sense, there's already an intelligence explosion going on and has been for a long time, where our tools are helping with our other tools. Will there be some speed up of that? Well, how much speed up are we talking about? So given that particular question, I think the respondents are pretty like spread out in their answers to how likely that is. And it seems like the least popular is quite likely, aside from so what's that, like 9%? Aside from that, it seems like it's sort of spread out across the different buckets.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was fairly even. But then I think this next one is I think is really interesting. And this was this chart around what AI systems in 2043 will be like. So that's only 20 less than 20 years away. And you obviously asked them some quite interesting questions, or gave them this group of questions to then obviously give their sort of probabilistic responses to. And they ranged from things like can talk like an expert human on most topics, find unexpected ways to achieve goals, frequently behave in ways that are surprising to humans, can be jailbroken to follow illegal commands. Oh, and then I'll finish on the last, this one. Sometimes deceive humans to achieve a goal without this being intended by humans. And some more beyond that. So I think, asking 3,000 AI experts and researchers who know what they're talking about, those sorts of questions, and getting these responses, I guess, is both really illuminating and slightly scary from the perspective of AI safety, right? So, I mean, just to take those first, this first couple, maybe comment on those. I mean, I'm just looking at the percentages. So, very likely or likely. So, if you just take very likely or likely, which are the darker two blue bars, so over over 80% think that AI will be able to talk like an expert human on most topics in that period of time, and probably more than 80% think they'll also find unexpected ways to achieve certain goals, which I guess are two maybe of the more positive outcomes of AI by 2043.
I feel like unexpected ways to achieve goals can really go either way, depending on how unexpected it is. Like, I think that is a kind of description of the thing you're terrified of, potentially, with powerful misaligned AI. But
yes, you're right. If the unexpected way could be actually, humans are getting in the way of me achieving this goal, then that could be quite terminal, couldn't it?
At worst, yeah.
And then you go into frequently behaving ways. Sorry, go on.
I say, like, at a more mundane level, I feel like if you have an employee and they find unexpected ways to achieve goals for like sort of small amounts of unexpectedness that are sort of not unexpectedly norm violating or something, you might be happy because they're achieving the goals better. But if it was like really outside the range of what you thought they might do at all, that's like less what you want. And I think that's sort of true for AI as well.
Yeah, no, and even down a little bit further, there's still, a kind of an even chance or so of some of these happening in the next 20 years, deceiving humans to achieve a goal without this actually being intended by humans, which I guess is kind of taking the second one and making that even more dystopian. Having goals not aligned with human goals. So and were those results for this year, were they significantly different from last year, or were they reasonably consistent?
This is actually a new question. So
okay.
The first year that we have such results.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what people say. Are you planning on doing this again next year or in a couple of years' time, do you think? Is that the...
I'm tentatively planning to do it again in 2024. But the plan's not very firm yet.
No, sure. Okay, and then we come down here, and I think again, this one is is a little bit scary as well, because this is only looking what
Yeah,
4 or 5 years out, and
yeah,
but I think is a really important piece, because and this is really real right now, because these I'm having these sorts of conversations with businesses, with enterprises who want to get all the benefits out of these amazing foundation models and large language models and multimodal models, but are worried about where it's actually getting its answers from, and how they manage the risk around that, let alone all the data
yeah,
and where it's coming from and blah blah blah. But how do I know where this answer has come from, and can I trust it, etc. And I think this I mean, just explain the results on this table, because this is quite compelling viewing.
yeah. So we asked whether AI in 2028 would be able to truthfully, intelligibly explain its decisions, like say where its answers came from,
Hmm.
and uh, broadly, no, pretty unlikely. The most popular answer is unlikely, with also many people saying very unlikely. Um, yeah, so I think it was kind of interesting, partly because I think maybe many people who are just hearing about this don't realize the extent to which we don't really know what's going on inside these systems, and it's like very hard to have a guarantee. For instance, if you want to know that a thing was done fairly or something, I think that's quite hard to
Yeah.
guarantee. Um,
No, exactly. But so more than half of those respondents saying it's going to be unlikely or very unlikely in 5 years' time that we'll be able to, or AI will be unable to explain itself as to how it gave us the answer, so we can, trust it and take it forward,
yeah,
is interesting.
you might think like 5 years isn't very long, and there was a sort of similar question in that other
Mm,
one we're looking at about traits, where it's more likely in 20 years. But I think if you expect a lot of these narrow things to actually happen in about 5 years or less, that
mm,
it's more important to like whether things will be reliable in a way in that time
yeah.
period.
Okay, and then there was another really interesting chart which was talking about it was this 11 future AI related scenarios, and I think there's a table down here. This was talking
Yeah, it
about
sounds right. Yeah,
I think
take your
the
reading.
concerning scenarios, right? And to what
Yeah,
extent should we be worried, I guess, about these different scenarios? And again, I'll just read a couple of them. So it went from
yeah,
AI making it easy to spread false information, to manipulating large scale opinions, authoritarian rulers using AI to control their population. And actually, I think there's about half the Western world, or maybe not even the Western world, but half of the globe is going to some sort of fairly significant election process in the next 12 to 18
yeah, right.
months. So the
Huh.
explosion of
Yeah,
all the generative AI, you really wonder
we're gonna see
to
it
what
soon.
extent some of those are going to just be front and center. But then going on to things about worsening economic equality, which is obviously a concern, creating actual, I guess, dangerous tools and weapons of mass destruction, be they engineered viruses or others, bias in AI systems, which we're seeing today. AI systems that actually result in catastrophes of some form. Um, and then, actually, the next one's a bit sad. People are just interacting with humans less because they're spending more time with their AI systems. And I mean, I must admit, I occasionally sit in the car talking to AI on the talk feature, and
Oh
having
yeah.
a more interesting conversation than I probably have with with a physical person, which is probably makes me rather sad. But anyway, that's what I do.
I don't know. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, just comment on this, because the red, again, sort of the red and orange, which describes both extreme and substantial concern. I mean, the first 7 or 8 of those are all above 50% sort of
Yeah.
concern, substantial and extreme concern, which again is interesting.
Yeah, I think I
Any
was
comments on it?
surprised by,
Hmm.
yeah, it seems like there really is just a lot of substantial and extreme concern here.
Yeah,
Even toward the bottom, it's like 30% of people
yeah,
think it's of substantial or extreme concern. And I guess I like I think that's interesting to me about this is like these are sort of across different areas of life, but often will like affect many things.
Mm,
Like if there's just false information everywhere, that would be a problem for like just you know many things people are trying to do. Like if it becomes harder to uh, govern things well because large scale opinion trends were being manipulated, that would sort of
mm,
make it harder to deal with like dangerous groups making powerful tools or whatever. Like these things kind of interact with each other and are quite um, broad
mm,
often. So I think I don't know if you take these answers seriously and are like, oh yeah, all these things are reasonably concerning. I think you should also consider whether like the additional concern coming
mm.
from all of these things happening at once.
Yeah. Yeah, no, interesting. And then this chart, which I think you tweeted, or do you still say tweeted, or do you say X'd? I can't remember. But I think you tweeted
I
this
still say
particular.
tweeted. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, all right, you and me both
yeah,
then. So I think
yeah.
you posted this anyway, and I mean just describe this, because this is 800 responses all sort of stacked up from most positive to most negative. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. Um, I think there's like um, there's a question of exactly how you order them, for, like what more positive uh, is. Like
Right.
you have to sort of give a weighting to each bucket. Um,
Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah, with some particular weighting on the goodness and badness of each category. Um, yeah, this is a random 800 people. Each very narrow column is one person's view, uh, and it's going from yellow, extremely good long-term outcomes of um,
Mm.
high-level machine intelligence to black, extremely bad, uh, through on balance good, neutral, on balance bad. Um,
Yeah.
I think things that I find particularly interesting about this are like uh, sort of not very polarized. Like most of the chart is people who are like, yeah, there's a low chance of extremely bad outcomes and also a low
Mm.
chance of extremely good outcomes. Um, and all of these other things could happen. And like there are a few people at either end who are like pretty confident about one or the other outcome, but it seems like there's a decent amount of consensus that the uh, just many things are on the table.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. All right. I was going to gloss over that one actually. I think because we sort of covered on some of that. But then there was a piece here. Sorry, there was the piece here about the how likely is AI to cause human extinction? Um, and if I find here we go. So the what probabilities you put on future AI advances causing human extinction was is that right? 16.2%
um,
as a mean.
I think that's right. Yes.
And
Yep.
5% as the median. I mean, I guess let's just focus on one of them for now. Otherwise, we'll get into the differences
Yeah.
between means and medians. But if we compare the means, say for each of those, but anyway, I mean, 16.2%. I mean, 19.4% when you then put on human inability to control on top of that, and then I guess
Yeah.
the third one was then specifying it in a time window of the next 100 years. Is that right? I think that was the difference
Yes.
between the three.
Yeah.
So I
But
guess
note
maybe
that different people are
yeah.
like each person got one of these questions, not all three. So I think you could be like,
Right.
why did the chance go up if we added an extra constraint? That doesn't make any sense.
No.
And I don't know, it might be that it in fact doesn't make sense, but also it was actually just different people. So there's sort of some you know variation from that, or they weren't being immediately inconsistent.
Got you. Got you. Okay. And that was the sort of the summarization of those human
Yeah.
extinction events.
I
Yeah.
find the median interesting to look at because I mean it does mean like
Hmm.
half of people thought this thing like
Mm.
16% mean could be like I don't know there are a small set of people who think it's really likely, to
Yeah.
destroy the world or something. But the 5% median means like this is a pretty
Mm.
common view that there's like at least
Yeah.
5% chance, um,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty notable.
Okay, and then if we just come on down here, so I think then the report moves a little bit on to sort of AI safety and research and the different ways in which I guess you defined it in this way, did you? In terms of some of the examples of AI safety research, did you share this with the recipients of the survey? Because you talk about improving, obviously, the understanding or the human understanding of the actual algorithms themselves, and obviously the safety and robustness of those, research on existential risks, etc., policy research and such like. Did you share that
Yeah.
as a sort of a specification as to the sorts of things that AI safety might include?
Yes. So we wanted to ask about AI safety research. So we gave a bunch of
Yeah.
particular examples. This time we actually had two versions of the question because when we wrote it in
Right.
2016, we didn't put anything about like bias type stuff in, just because we were thinking
Mm-hmm.
of a few examples and it didn't come up. But I think
Right.
now it's like more prominent. So not including it might imply that we meant specifically to not include it. So we tried a
Yeah.
different version of the question that with that example as well this year, and I think they got very similar answers as well.
Okay. And I guess then in terms of this summary, perhaps unsurprisingly, but certainly consistently and certainly no less than in previous years, the respondents have pretty wholeheartedly said there should be AI safety research should be prioritized more than it currently is. In fact, if you take the more and much more, that's what 70%
Yeah,
70%
70% of
exactly.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is up quite a bit from 2016. It seems like the most the biggest
Yeah.
change here is like in 2016 about the same was actually quite popular. It was like 38%
Mm.
and then it's dropped,
Mm.
and all of that has pretty much gone to much more.
Okay. And then you also talk about the alignment problem, which is actually Stuart Russell. Did you know? Well, you probably didn't know this. Stuart Russell, who now is out where you are, isn't he? Do you know Stuart? You probably
Yeah,
know Stuart as well,
I
right?
do a little, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, he I think he started off life, or he was certainly in Portsmouth, which is about
All right.
10 miles east of where I am currently,
All
because
right.
I'm in Southampton in the UK. So he wasn't that far away from me for quite some time. But yeah, so Stuart Russell. I mean, do you want to just describe that the kind of the value alignment problem that Stuart Russell and others have described?
I think that the what's a brief description? I guess like if you try uh, if you specify what you want a system to
Mm,
do, and you miss out various things that you want, like you only include some of the variables you care about, um,
mm.
that you won't get what you want, um, as exemplified in the King Midas story, for instance. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, we gave a sort of longer description of something like that. Um, I'm I'm not sure that the description we gave should properly be described as the alignment problem, which is
Right.
also a sort of complicated thing that people have different definitions for. But it's sort of broadly something like that, like
Mm,
the, the kind of problem where if you have an AI and it has goals that aren't the goals you want, but they are
mm.
goals and it is trying to achieve them in the world, things will go
Yeah.
badly as a result. Something like that.
Yeah, and I think it does it also pick up on the fact that actually understanding what the values are of humanity is actually quite difficult, because obviously different parts of humanity and different groups within humanity have different values and different objectives, and therefore actually finding a globally acceptable set of values, principles, and objectives to actually align all of your AI to is pretty hard to get to, because humanity in itself doesn't have that alignment, which is a problem in of itself.
Yeah, I think that's clearly part of the difficulty, and different
Mm.
definitions of the problem, I think, sometimes include that or not. Um,
Mm.
I think like before you get to that, even if you just wanted to align AI with one particular human, it would already be quite tricky. I think like figuring out what one particular human actually values is. I think we know how to do that well enough to then have a machine carry out their will uh, satisfactorily.
Yeah, I watched.
Um,
I
yeah,
think I watched something where he was describing it, and I think he used quite a simple example, but it was quite a telling example, which was I think he was saying, "What if I had an AI that was cooking for me, and I was living in a sort of a vegetarian family with a vegetarian environment, and therefore my AI was had values all around cooking vegetarian food, but then I
yeah,
loaned that AI out to my next door neighbor who wanted to have a barbecue with lots of meat, and that was their that was what they wanted. And he said that doesn't actually make, in that case anyway, doesn't mean that those values are wrong and that the AI therefore should necessarily say, no, I can't possibly cook a burger on a steak for that family next door, because it's just their
mm,
values, and alignment to that set of values is slightly different. Obviously it becomes slightly more important when you're talking about matters of life and death, but in
yeah,
terms of things that are more a matter of taste or culture, you know, our AI does need to be able to blend and move in directions that our value systems, may take it reasonably. So, yeah,
right.
no,
So
that's
it's like a tricky question of being able to align with any different set of values,
yeah,
beyond the question of being able to align with any at all.
yeah. So look, you're we reached I think mostly the end of the research paper, and I think
Yeah.
loads of really interesting facts in there, and I'll just try and summarize a couple of them in a minute, just to sort of wrap up that piece. But
Yeah.
I think we touched on. You said that you are planning on running this again. I mean, I think it's literally fascinating to actually go out to a bunch of real sort of experts and researchers who know more than most of us, and to get these sorts of results, I think is really interesting. Not just from a factual basis as to what they think, but almost as a sort of an exercise in social science at a time of great transformation. So
Yeah.
congratulations on a really interesting paper, and I know it's
Thank you.
got a lot of interest out in the in the field as well. So where do you think you will take it from here and beyond, Katja?
uh, this research, I think it would be
Yes,
nice to
yes.
to to continue running like this survey every year or so, especially I don't know as things are moving kind of
Mm.
quickly. Um, I think uh, there are like a lot of interesting questions, and we like here we end up randomizing the questions, so each person only gets a subset of questions,
Yes.
especially for the ones that are sort of less important to get everyone's opinion. Um, and so, like, we're already really squeezing questions in, and there are other interesting questions to ask. Because I've been thinking a bit about like running a different one about more like policy questions or something. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure if that will happen. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
basically more identical survey, hopefully with
Excellent.
less effort in future. It keeps on ending up being quite an effort, and I feel like you could streamline this.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine how much time and effort it actually takes to to both send out all the, and I guess you're doing this electronically via email
Yeah, yeah,
predominantly, which I
yeah,
guess is easier than it may have been many years ago. But that in of
yeah. Though it's
itself
still,
is a task.
yeah, I think it's complicated also by like we're writing to a bunch of strangers, so they have various barriers in place to hearing from us, um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yes,
I
we
guess
offer
you
them.
appear in a few spam folders.
I think many spam folders, which can happen at different points in the process. Like some of them we manage to write to them initially and they take it,
Right.
and we promise them money in response. But then when we try and send them the money, that goes to their spam filter.
Mm.
So they're sitting there for ages being
Yeah.
like, oh, they didn't pay us. Maybe this isn't
Yeah.
legit or something. But
Oh,
actually,
actually,
like,
so
yeah.
so that is an interesting point, because I remember reading that about that. So what was the rationale for offering the kind of the the commercial incentive to respond to the survey, and how did that impact the survey results, or not, do you think?
Yeah, the impetus for doing it is to just try and get a high response rate in a way that's
Mm.
like um, not going to push the opinion in any particular direction. Like there are ways of getting a high
Right.
response rate. Like, I don't know, for instance, get someone who has a strong opinion in some direction to tweet to their
Yes.
followers that they should do this survey or something. So try to
Yeah.
avoid anything like that, and do things that will
Yeah.
just like hopefully bring in a broad swathe of people,
Right.
who like, hopefully people who like would like some money, which is not too correlated to any particular opinion. And so yeah, it seemed like this year what we did was, we started out with pilots where we sent some of them,
Yeah.
offered $50, and some of them we offered nothing,
Mhm.
to see if that actually made a difference. Because last year
Okay.
it was sort of hard to tell how much of a difference it was making.
Right.
This year it seemed like it was making a big difference. It seemed like it was sort of doubling the response rate. So then we
Okay.
decided to go with it, and also sent out money to the people who'd initially been offered nothing. So
Right.
in the end, everyone got the same offer.
Everybody got $50.
Oh yeah, $50, or it's like surprise. A big part of the complication of doing this is actually getting money to the people, because
Yeah, I bet.
they're
I bet.
spread across the world, and there are a bunch of countries where
Huh.
apparently like it's actually
Mhm.
complicated to send them money. Um,
And uh,
yeah.
and I guess a kind of a related question, and
Yeah.
tell me if you don't want to answer this, but I guess it's a related question, which is an interesting one. Is how are you actually funded? So how can you afford to pay £50 to
Yeah.
3,000 respondents of a survey?
Well, the money for that in particular came from Open Philanthropy Project. Um,
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they give money to various different kinds of projects who are particularly interested in like
Yeah.
AI
No. Sure.
safety type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Sure.
Um,
And I
um,
sorry. Go on.
I would say, more broadly, we're funded by a mixture of them,
Hmm.
other kinds of, like AI safety, or
Hmm.
sort of effective altruistic kind of, do the
Yeah.
most effective good type orgs, and
Yeah.
private individuals who are like worried about, like
Yeah.
AI. Um, and yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So look, let me try very briefly. I'm going to try and just summarize some of the key points from the
All right.
paper again. I'll get to the end, and you can tell me whether I've been listening carefully enough or not. And
Okay.
then, as we do on some of the videos, I have a set of 10 questions, which I think are particularly pertinent to the
Okay.
subject that we've been talking about, because it's a little bit future looking in terms of where AI is going, and what do we think is going to happen. So that's not your 3,000 respondents from your survey I'd like an answer from. That's from Katja
Me. All
Grace
right.
yourself.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up if that's okay. So I think, in summary, in the space of just 1 year, the general consensus of the AI experts and researchers in your paper is that the speed with which AI is expected to advance to enable it to take on both individual tasks, but then also entire roles, has fundamentally shifted. The chance of AI reaching human level machine intelligence, which is when you said machines will accomplish every task better and more cheaply than a human, has accelerated by over 13 years, with a 50%
So it should
chance of
be,
that happening now by,
high level, not human level, but they're basically similar. Yeah.
sorry, human,
Yeah. That's
with a 50%
Yeah.
chance of that happening now by
Yeah.
2047 rather than 2060, which was the estimation from last year. Um, I mean, that's incredible to think that we could find a machine able to do every single task better than we can within the space of
To be
little
clear, it
more than
wouldn't be like
20 years.
one machine. Um,
Yeah.
this is like, for any task, there are machines that can do it, not necessarily one super machine. Yeah.
Got you. And then moving from HLMI to FAOL, or the full automation of labour, which I think we defined as unaided machines accomplishing entire jobs and roles better and cheaper than human workers. And that's accelerated by a massive 48 years, from last year's 2164 to this year's 2116. And that milestone, I'm afraid, is definitely beyond my lifetime. But I have a 6-year-old daughter who in 2116 will probably be about the same age as my grandparents are now, and I can only imagine, therefore, the amazing, incredible changes that she's going to see across her lifetime. And that for the 32 specific tasks, yeah.
If all tasks are automated much before that, hopefully that includes contributing to longevity research, and so maybe it could be within your lifetime.
Oh, I like your thinking, Katja. I like your thinking. Let's, fingers crossed. I'm already thinking about how I'm going to upload myself to the cloud for future reference. And we talked about the 32 specific tasks that we were talking about. Yeah. Many of those had been advanced by multiple years as well, such as AI writing the New York Times bestseller that we talked about. That was, I think, accelerated almost 10 years from 2038 to 2029. And I think we said you could also argue that one or two of these tasks are already being delivered by the very latest AI, maybe a good high school history essay, constructing video from a new angle, reading text aloud. We're already there or thereabouts for some of these tasks already. We went on to say that on balance, the AI experts believe that once HLMI has been reached, that there's likely to be an intelligence explosion where the AI feedback loop will accelerate technological process by an order of magnitude, at least. That's essentially initially at least a 10-fold increase in the rate of advancement, and that rate will then continue to extrapolate and explode further. We share the estimates.
I'd say for that
AI
one,
systems,
like middlingly likely. Like I don't think they thought it was super likely. I'd say they're sort of spread out, but most of them thought there was like a non-negligible chance of this.
Yeah, fair point. We share the estimates that AI systems by 2043 are likely to be as good as an expert human on most topics, that they'll find unexpected ways to achieve new goals. They'll frequently behave in ways that are surprising to humans. They'll be being jailbroken to follow illegal commands, and will quite possibly sometimes deceive humans to achieve a goal without that goal being intended by the humans themselves. And I think we should remember, this isn't a bunch of Reddit subscribers telling us what to expect. This is several thousand of the most experienced AI researchers on the planet. And we heard that in just 5 years' time, that the likelihood of us being able to explain AI's reasoning, or AI being able to explain its reasoning to us, is only deemed by the experts to be 5% very likely. We talked about the most extreme concerns of the AI researchers in the next 30 years, and those being AI's ability to spread misinformation, manipulate large-scale public opinion, be used by authoritarian rulers to control their population, worsen economic inequality, introduce new weapons of mass destruction, and increase discrimination. And that 30% of the participants in the survey put at least a 10% chance of extremely bad outcomes, including human extinction. But interestingly, while some of the fears and risks...
Say that one again.
Sorry. It was, and that 38% of the participants in the survey put at least a 10% chance of extremely bad outcomes, including human extinction.
That's right. Sorry, I think I misheard.
That's okay. But interestingly, while some of the fears and risks are clearly called out, there was no real consensus on whether we should slow down or speed up the development of AI globally. In fact, 3 times as many experts felt it better for humanity's future to go much faster than much slower. And I think at the end we said, and with a nod to Stuart Russell's formation of the alignment problem, which describes the difficulty of aligning the very many and disparate values of humans themselves to an AI system in itself, is deeply challenging. More than half of the AI experts there believe that that's a challenge that is both essential to resolve, but could prove harder than many other problems in the field. But what was very clear from the research was that AI safety is and should be a top priority, according to the thousands of AI experts polled, with 70% of them saying AI safety should have either more or much more focus. and that focus could be on improving our understanding of how the models operate and provide answers, or improving the safety and robustness of the systems rather than focus everything on building new capabilities into the models, to research longer term risks of AI systems, and to support policy research on how to best govern these AI systems and ensure ultimately the public benefit from their development. And so we see governments across the world shaping up the first guidance and legislation to begin to take effect, from Biden's executive order on AI to that's at the federal level, to AI legislation being created across at least 25 US states as we speak. We see the EU AI Act reaching the final stages of its formal introduction, and perhaps a more laissez-faire approach from the UK. We see global bodies such as the Worldwide Economic Forum introducing the AI Governance Alliance in an endeavour to bring together governments, industry leaders, academic institutions, and many more across the globe, with the clarity that this is not going to be a challenge solved by countries and companies working in their own ivory towers. And we see the AI industry itself cautiously calling for this very oversight and care, whilst still more than eager to benefit from the spoils. And so we're getting near to the end of our time here, Katja. Thank you very much. I hope that was a reasonable summary, and thank you for chipping in.
I thought it was a great summary.
Yeah. Excellent. What we tend to do at the end of each video is a little bit of fun, but as I said, it's quite relevant from the subject matter that we've just gone through. A quick fire set of the same 10 questions around AI to summarize where you, Katja Grace, think we're headed. And as we get more data points, I'll start sharing them on a league table to give us a view as to where we think we're actually headed. So, if you are ready, then Katja, here are the 10 questions. I need a simple yes, no, possibly a date, or at most one sentence answer to each question, please. Are you ready?
All right. I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Okay. What is the worst single outcome you can realistically envisage from AI?
I think human extinction.
Okay. What is the best single outcome you can realistically envisage from AI?
I think maybe it's not descriptive to say utopia, but like for any given problem we have, the solution to that, and just like a lot more happiness and thriving, and people having more than they could possibly imagine so far in terms of good things.
Sounds like utopia to me. If you could change one thing about the development of AI right now, what would it be?
I mean, like a widespread commitment to not proceed with more development where we are broadly uncertain if it's going to cause human extinction.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. What do you think might be AI's one or two most significant innovations or inventions in the 21st century? Any thoughts?
I mean, I think it's being able to talk to us sensibly, that broad set of things that went into that. Like I know less about like what the particular technical things were.
Okay. And if you were, I know you know Eliezer Yudkowsky and his AI box experiment, but if you were
I do know him.
Yudkowsky's, oh, you know him as well. Excellent. If you were his gatekeeper of the AI, okay.
Yeah.
What one thing would make you feel most able to let it out of the box?
So I'm looking after a real super intelligent AI in a box.
Yes.
Right.
Correct. This is the scenario, and you are the gatekeeper.
Yeah. Right. I think like some sort of very tight argument that I can follow and other people who I trust agree with, that it is going to be good for the world rather than bad if I let it out.
Okay, so it seems pretty reasonable. Okay, right, will artificial general intelligence happen, and if so, in what year?
I think yes. You might think I would have a cached answer to this one, but actually don't at the moment. I'm assuming we mean something like can do everything that humans do better than humans, not just like can be generally intelligent.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask you about
Yeah.
super intelligence in a minute. So general intelligence in the way you would define it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, then I won't assume it's like better than humans at everything. I'll assume it's like similar to humans in its ability to like generally consider a lot of different things and act reasonably and so on according to something like goals. Like 15 years.
So. Okay, very good. Will the singularity happen, and if so, in what year?
I guess happening in a year suggests that it got extremely fast, which I guess is maybe implied by singularity. Like, unsure.
Okay. Will artificial super intelligence happen, and if so, in what year?
Yes. Like 25 years.
Okay. Wow. Two more questions to go.
Sorry, is that wow? That's wow, that's late.
Oh, that's pretty soon. But yeah. The next one's even further out, I guess. So, do you think transhumanism will ever happen, and if so, in what year?
Where this is like humans are substantially modified by technology.
Yes, I get. Yes, kind of. We merge with our machines, I guess.
Oh, we merge with them. Okay. I mean, I feel like from the perspective of someone a long time ago looking at now, you might say that we already have in ways. They're not attached to our bodies exactly, but like you look around, let's look at our phones. So I think putting a year on that is particularly hard, but I would say yes. And
okay.
these sort of similarly, or yeah, if we're not destroyed, similarly in the kind of like 25-year range.
Okay. And then on the final one, which I guess is kind of wraps that up in a way. So on balance, and I guess given everything we've said and all the information from all the AI researchers and experts that you've had and your answers, do you think on balance that AI will lead to a more utopian or dystopian future and outcome?
I think more utopian. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, with serious risk of very bad.
Yes, with serious risk of human extinction, but fingers crossed, and maybe with a bit more focus on AI safety, we might we might manage through. Okay, well, thank you for humouring me on those 10 questions. A little bit of fun, but I think it's it is interesting to
welcome
to think about.
I think it's
some of those
good to actually have answers to these things. I want to say that I'm pretty uncertain about all of these, to be clear. Like my actual answer is a wide distribution, if I have to put a number on it. Yeah.
So thank you, Katja. Really enjoyed the conversation and walking through the paper. It's been a lot of fun. Love to have you back on EYE4AI sometime. Perhaps after next year's report is out, and we'll see if it's moved substantially again. Even more advanced in accelerating timescales. And don't forget, everyone, if you haven't already, I highly recommend Katja's blog on World Spirit Sock Puppet. And you can find more blogs and papers on AI impacts, and you can support their research there too. And I'll put links down in the description below. So thank you one last time, Katja. And as is the tradition on EYE4AI, I'd like to hand the microphone over to you for a moment for a few closing remarks and to close out the video.
All right, thank you. Really great to be here. I think one thing to take away from all of this, like a lot of things here are pretty wild and sound pretty science fiction-y, and are also extremely uncertain. So it's easy to be like, probably such and such won't happen. I think it's important to remember that something along these lines is happening pretty soon, like that some version of this is real, and is going to affect a lot of things in our everyday lives. And so I think it's important, even while it's quite uncertain, to be keeping an eye on it and trying to be right about what's going to happen, even if we have to like change our minds a lot in the next few years. And it's important to make our decisions based on what's actually going to happen, because it might really matter.
Thank you again, Katja, for your time, and I hope you have a nice rest of your Saturday over in Berkeley. I guess it's mid-morning, so
yep.
nice to talk to you, and to all the viewers. Well, you've been watching EYE4AI with me, Tim Elsom, and Katja Grace, bringing artificial intelligence to all of humanity. Please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to make sure you don't miss the next video. Bye for now.
Dance for me, dance for me, dance for me, oh, oh. I never seen anybody do the things you do.